How do you know if you're doing it right? We have spent the last half an hour discussing how easy it is to be distracted and how sometimes it'd be very difficult to know, despite working really hard towards a goal or towards a part of your performance, there can still be an element of uncertainty. And you mightn't even know that what you're doing is not being effective. But the head is down and you're going to keep working on it. I mean, that's something we see a lot and talk a lot about and have experienced ourselves.
Yeah, when you're putting so much effort in and sometimes not even taking a break to assess if it is getting you the results towards what you want to achieve. And if you haven't spent that time really thinking about what it is you're working towards and attaching the things that need to be done to that, then sometimes we can just get lost in the hard work and the feeling of I'm doing so much, I'm doing as much as I can. And sometimes that can be disheartening if you don't get the result. And that's what we help people to bring clarity to at the very start is let's just first understand what is it that you are working towards, and then let's decide what actually matters and what sometimes we don't need to be doing or worrying too much about.
There's a statement that you hear an awful lot in sport about outworking the other competition, or you personally are willing to do the work or to do more work than anybody else, or I worked out, I will outwork anyone. But if you're outworking or you're working, and did you ever see that meme where there's somebody digging underground
Mm.
and they're digging more and harder than the other person, but the other person has a map or knows exactly where they're going
Mm.
towards the diamond.
Yeah,
And you
yeah,
see this person where they're going there and then down further and deeper, and they're just going further and further away
yeah.
from what they're actually digging for. Whereas the person who's taken some time to kind of know exactly where that diamond is, I think that that's a good reference when you think about the work. I feel like so much of my work, even within Davy Nutrition, and even within now we're establishing Verus Performance together, I still feel like that. I still like I have this work ethic, but very often, I think that's honestly, I'm not just saying this, I think that's why we work so well together. I think that you're really good at asking hard questions about, well, is the work we're doing actually bringing us closer to what we're trying to achieve?
Because I think there's something in, well, depending on how you're wired, but
Do you
most
agree with
people.
that?
I'll leave that with you.
Because he didn't address it. He just said, yeah, he just moved on. You were going to.
Well, I was going to attach it to sometimes it can feel more comfortable doing as much work as possible than what do you do with the other time if it takes this amount of hours and these types of actions is what I actually need. Now, what do you do with this? We can view it as spare time, but it's also valuable time that can be used to make the other parts of your life even more effective or more valuable if you can really start to put things into the right box that you don't have to be working 100% of the time. There's other periods over here that if you took a break or if you were able to do other things that feels, when we talk about rest and recovery and finding other things, like that was the biggest light bulb moment for me, especially, well, maybe 2 seasons ago now, but to actually find what it means to recover, to rest, and then to feel better going back into performance when you didn't feel like you just had to work all the time. I think that's what I'm now bringing into what we're doing, and when it comes to like the business side.
So let's do something interesting for a moment. And we haven't talked about this, but you acknowledge that sometimes our direction, or even my direction, I mean, even the joke is about my stories can be too long and there are too many ideas. How do you go about then navigating, like, let's be really open here for a moment, and how do you go about navigating that that aspect of my personality that you recognize within a meeting, or you recognize within a week or a day, that that's a nice idea, and I can see that you're excited by that, but that's not bringing us closer to what we're trying to achieve. How do you go about navigating that?
Not to dismiss anything, and to be quite, I think you have to appreciate that new ways of thinking of things, new ideas are valuable and should sit somewhere. And then it's almost just being able to sometimes pick parts of those ideas and slot them in where they might actually accelerate you or enhance what we're doing. But I think what I feel like the strongest part of where we are right now is we do have that map and that game plan. And sometimes things can come in to help think differently about that game plan, but not to, like, if everything that we're talking about in recent weeks have been about not getting distracted. Like, what the elite athletes do is that they have the game plan, that they're focused on what they're trying to achieve. And I feel like we should all be elite athletes of this business right now and how we operate. And I think,
Good coaching and well answered. But let's go back maybe a little bit further. We didn't have that game plan and we didn't have that clarity. How did you navigate it then?
I didn't. I did. I I thought about it as opposed to being able to feel like
That's not true.
that is true.
Well,
How I felt
maybe it's
anyway.
untrue. Yeah, maybe how you felt, but in part, how do you think you communicated that?
In some of the ways that I don't know, I would have worked, and the things that I would have brought.
Yeah, exactly. Because I think that I have been aware that I suppose what I'm getting to, that I didn't even mean to get to within this, that I think is very helpful, is that not only have we clarified our game plan, not only have we clarified what a good week looks like, or what the outcomes of the week look like, I think that we've done a really good job of, and you've drove or driven this, even understanding roles and the definition of roles as part of the game plan. And it's with the clarity. We've always had this vision, but there's been so many components that have needed to align.
Mm,
And I think that there's I think what you said first is very true. I think that I never feel stupid because of a new idea. The idea is not lost. There's a place for it to go. There's a place for it to channel. But you do need somebody that's almost, I don't know, is it signposting? Is it course correction? But asking those questions. And I think the reason I'm bringing that up is you can waste an awful lot of time. And we've wasted time, but like, we are where we are, but you can waste an awful lot of time going back to that analogy of going the wrong direction.
yeah, it's how, I suppose when you're looking at it now from, I'd still see every wrong direction as such a valuable lesson. And like, would we be at this point if we didn't go all those different directions and bringing all those different ideas into it and changing things? I think, we're still very grateful for the whole journey. And like, now it's brought us to this point where we can maybe start to solidify things a little bit more. And for a lot of people that are, we might work with, they have gone in different directions and they bring this whole story of to where they are right now. And I think that if someone has the ability to reflect on that, and that's the most powerful thing, is then you can start to shape the next steps. But it's that kind of pause that you do have to take quite often to be able to decide if what you're doing is bringing you to where you want to go.
So if you ask the question again, how do you know if you're doing it right? What are the really obvious things that need to be a part of it that we've established?
To first know where you want to go. I think that is the most important, but also equally the hardest thing to put down on paper.
How do you think Like, do you have to know that yourself, or do you think that's something that we can help people with, or that you can get help with?
Both. We have quite a bit of an experience of people coming that are very clear on where they want to go. And then there are also people that come in with maybe an idea or a feeling. And I think it is important to have a conversation and to work through things. It's something that sometimes if you just put a plan in place without really knowing where you want to go or what it is you want to achieve or feel or how you want to be living, then it's hard to assess if you're progressing or not because you haven't really decided if, is it strength, is it speed, is it this, is it sometimes things can get a little bit confusing if we haven't really spent time thinking about what the goal is.
I wonder how long the average person spends in this shit and wheels spinning, with there being some very simple solutions and simple things that they can do to help them move forward. And I bring that up because going back to where my own head was at, and how I do not want to sit in the shit with some of the things that I find frustrating. When I say sit in the shit, I mean, it's just a metaphor. I mean, I'm unbelievably positive and happy with all of the important things in life. But when I think about myself personally, and I'll ask you about this in a moment, I probably have a very high tolerance for shit.
Mm.
How come you didn't laugh? I thought that was funny.
Just thinking about it.
You're thinking about it.
No, not doing it.
Shit. Do you know what I mean by that?
Uh, I think so, but you share what that means to you.
Well, maybe it's that I don't want this to be confused with ego, but I think I really like figuring things out.
Mm.
I like to be a person that does the work and then is able to show the evidence that work helped move me forward and that I'm willing to do the work. But the going back to the signposting, I think if I reflect, there are many instances where I can think of them just popping into my head. Geez, I should have had a conversation about this with somebody sooner.
Yeah, I find it interesting. Like, well, when I was at home there last weekend, I'm sure she's not listening to this, but like my sister said something about feeling a bit frustrated with
I'm
her.
going to tag her in this.
Yeah, she, she won't mind, I don't think. um, Frustrated about her.
You'll have to mention her page, and then she'll be fine with it.
Oh, yeah, she'll be grand then.
If
She
we
probably
are
get.
talking about the same sister.
Yeah. She was frustrated about her going to the gym and maybe not making the progress that she would have expected that she should be making because she is working hard. And we trained together for the whole week. But I just, we were talking through lots of different things in when it came to technique or maybe that being a bit too heavy and not having a quality, set. And then doing maybe not when you looked at the whole one single session, how much of a difference when you have a quality session versus only getting some of the reps in, and all of a sudden that accumulates over weeks and weeks of she's never trained like this before. She goes to classes that are maybe not as controlled or as the program isn't progressing. So if she was to follow maybe what we had done for 4 weeks versus what she's used to doing, it was just so interesting to talk through it and then asking her what would she expect from this session. And then I asked her like what was the reason of going to the classes? Why would you not do a different program yourself? So her whole goal of initially going to the gym, she's like, well, I wanted to just be with people and meet people. I was like, well, has that was your original goal? Has that been the case? And it was. She's like, oh yeah, I wouldn't want to not go to the classes. So it was just interesting to hear like what the initial driver was to now it's become okay. Now I actually want to progress in something as something needs to change there. But there was still the expectation that if I keep doing this here, I should get better. Versus like, okay, get better at what? What I just found that conversation fascinating, and then to nearly compare it to what you're doing to versus like what you actually want to achieve now and how that might need to change, which is the same in a lot of things, like even us talking about the business side of things. If you want this, then you need to put different strategies in place.
And what I think is fascinating is that so few of those conversations happen in day
Mm.
to day life. And the frustrations continue to build. But what you had there is, you had a conversation with your sister about challenging her in what she wanted to achieve, and then how that's evolved. But what she set out to achieve in the first place, in terms of connection, is being achieved.
Mm-hmm.
But then, because there's energy going in and effort and time is set aside, you want more from it. Well, that's a different expectation and a different set of actions. But where would your sister be, or where would anybody be in that situation if they didn't have that conversation? And then that's one part. And then you got to reflect on, well, are you listening? Are you listening now? Are you going to commit to the program if you want that outcome?
Mm. Sure, that's what I asked.
No, I know. No, I know. But that's the point.
Yeah, and that I think that's the biggest thing, because the frustration keeps happening for many people without really sitting down and looking at that. And you do have to ask yourself those tough questions. But I think the most helpful thing you can do is to have that conversation with somebody that can guide you through like the right questioning of things, because it's not always as hard as we can make it in our own heads. Like sometimes it is quite, can be broken down to like, here's just the next step and we can commit to this for this set of weeks and then see how you get on. And sometimes the most motivating thing is actually the result that you get.
You, like always, Gemma, are welcome to disagree with me on this. And
No
we
problem.
probably don't disagree enough on air. We do disagree plenty off air. I don't think we've done a good enough job at that. I think, okay, so I'll speak for myself. Maybe you feel differently, but I think I've I've got two different projections, personas, and one of the personas is online, showing people, demonstrating the simplicity of achieving a structure in meals, simple recipes, unbelievably easy things that you can do to make a difference to your health, to your performance today, now. But when I think about if I think about my approach to working with somebody, I don't think, I don't think that there's been a good enough job done in showing exactly what you said, that sometimes there are the simplest changes that can be made that can make a difference to how you feel today, tomorrow, this week. I think there's too much talk about life changing, and there's too much talk about the hard conversations and challenging people, and because that's what I love. It's, you need to demonstrate more evidence of the simplicity, and give enough attention to, I think about the simplest example. So you see all these videos going viral about people just drink more water. And I go, oh, for fuck's sake, if I see another video about drinking more water.
Yeah, there has to be value in the simple things too. Like it is hard to do a simple thing all week, and sometimes that evidence of I come back to my sister again. Like we would have a conversation of like, did you go out for the walk this morning? And like the simple, sometimes you just
Did you?
hear did you go?
That walk.
Well,
Did
I'm
you?
just like, well, it's different having it with your sister
I
than
hope you're nice. I hope you're nice.
I am nice sometimes. But it is hard to do the simple things consistently. But that's what you have to do.
We talked this morning in our science talk about a phenomenal piece of research, and there was jokes this morning about the publication, like the period that the research was done. And do you want to mention what the time period was?
BC, like 1988 or something.
1933 to 1988. And I was actually going to lie
Oh,
about
it
this.
actually was 1933. What?
Yeah, or whatever it was. I
Oh,
think it was. Yeah.
1988.
But the point was that the information was taken in around people who are successful in the 1988 Olympics.
Mm-hmm.
But
Before.
I hadn't, honestly, until you had mentioned it, I hadn't seen the particular time period, and I was just reading it like it was published last month. And then when you highlighted it, and Ellen sort of laughed and said, "Well, no, that's what we're talking about." It's phenomenal, the level of detail and the level of mental and physical skills that was developed at that time point. Like we almost think that human beings are completely different now than what they were 30 years ago. We're not.
Mm.
We're
No.
not. Like people who achieved over the last, at the highest level, the last 50 years were the best in the world, and the best in the world then are
Mm-hmm.
still the best in the world.
Yeah.
And
And there's, yeah, sorry.
no, just to say that, not, yeah, technology has changed and our understanding of science has changed, but what they described as being important is still what's important.
Yeah. Like not getting distracted, total commitment to the quality of their training, being deliberate about what they're doing, the mental preparation, not just putting in the reps, they're actually putting in quality reps over time. It is, yeah, reading through it, it is so interesting to hear to read the quotes of the things that people are saying about if I miss, it's just about the next one. Like that's still the things that you hear the elite athletes and the athletes at the top of their game say is the most important thing is to not get distracted. And now we're living in a world where distraction is everywhere is the biggest problem.
And when people didn't perform, it was it's still the same things, and it's the opposite. It's distraction, going away from what works, not having a clear plan, and doing things like, I mean, one of the phenomenal things was like increasing training load right before competition, wanting that feeling and need to do more.
Mm.
I they just found the whole thing so fascinating and such a just so reassuring in how we're developing our framework. But I think we have we have to continue to do such a good job of bringing people's stories to life. Those stories just, and those athletes' words, those medal winners in those Olympics, those stories, just their legacy, like they will live forever. And I think, without getting too deep, but also saying it with great meaning, bringing the stories of the amazing people that we're working with to life, and showing them the evidence, but also sharing that evidence for other people to be inspired by. Because I feel like it's, everybody's story is different, but they're so effective. And you hear people's stories, and you read the reflections, and you read the wins. You can see the paths emerging that we're talking about in knowing whether you're doing it right or not.
Mm-hmm.
You said it, you need the framework and you need the pause.
Yeah. And that piece at the start when you can go back at the end of those that journey and to say like look at what we had set out to try and achieve and very often we've gone beyond that and now we're in a completely different place, but it's just having something to keep the focus at the very start and to know when we are kind of wavering off or getting distracted that there's something to pull back into what they can focus on and what really matters each week, because those distractions will happen. It's just knowing how to bring it back to focus.
Thoroughly enjoyed that conversation, Gemma.
Likewise.
What's your winning moment this week?
We had an essay that was shared this week that was written by a young athlete who has been working with us now almost coming up to 3 months now. And she'll be moving over to back to the USA on her scholarship. And we had found in her reflections that she had her ability to reflect at such a young age with such depth and ability to understand like what was working for her, but also what was really helping her, had been just amazing to read. And we were, discussing it weekly in our conversations, our client conversations. And then we'd asked her to write, if she would consider writing a piece for us on the platform. And she'd gone off and wrote an article and said she'd come back, shared it, but also then shared how much writing that had helped her. Being able to, so she said it was the first time she sat down and really thought about her whole story from when she was a young girl to like where she is now. And just, it was amazing to read and so powerful. And now she's going back over to her second year university, almost like a different athlete, different person, and she's really looking forward to it now. So that was definitely the winning moment this week, and probably topped it up for a few weeks now.
Yeah. Where can people read that, or can anybody read it?
It's not published yet, but we've just got her photos, and yeah, we're going to be getting it up onto the client dashboard that we're putting on the website. So we're excited to share that one, and yeah,
Incredible.
you'll be able to read that one soon. Yeah,
mine is a little. It's a little bit hard to explain because I don't want it to come across like it. Or maybe I just say it how it is, and then it won't come across the way that I'm afraid it might. I got a message yesterday from a lady who she's a part of a club in Cork who helped to organize, who invited me down to deliver a session. When you don't know what you're going into, you just don't know what to expect. And I don't know how many different presentations I've done to teams, but this one felt very different. And I'm pausing because I'm brought right back to walking into the room and the players coming in and them being friendly and doing exactly what we've talked about over the past half an hour about how do you know if you're doing it right, and asking them like what is it they want to achieve, and then what's holding them back. So for 2 hours I gave them the opportunity to talk about what they wanted to achieve and what was holding them back and what they needed to do. That's what the conversation was about. It was no different than that. I talked about some of my experience, but it was a space for them to talk about what they cared about. So the message yesterday was a long message, but at the top of it was, and I didn't know what this meant until I read through the message, but at the top of it was the league table, and that they were sitting at the top of the league. And they said that if someone was to tell them that they'd be top of the league back in March, they wouldn't have believed it. And they said that it started with that conversation. And I've read it. I've read the message a few times, and I found it hard to even take it all in, because like there's so much emotion that creates, where you have a group of athletes who decide that they're going to set a standard and that they're going to drive the actions associated with those standards. It just doesn't happen very often. And it's, you said to me, you think that that's one of the best messages that we've got. I think what blows my mind, if we go back to the very beginning and what I said, I think I personally need to do a better job of, that was a 2-hour session. Sometimes an incredible amount can be achieved when people are just aligned a little bit better to what those standards look like. You can be sitting at the top of a league table a couple of weeks and months later, and I probably need to have more belief in that being possible, because I would never walk into a room with that type of expectation. So I don't know if that's right or wrong. I'm just reflecting a lot on it.
Yeah, it was the most powerful feedback I've ever read on anything. And I think because we talk so often about like how long it takes for change to happen, that still took them months of, but it came from the commitment part of it, and like for you to walk in and actually facilitate that conversation is the expertise that, and it is the ability to present these ideas in a way that makes people believe that they're possible. So I feel like, yeah, even reading that now, because it's months and months later, to be able to know that how much that experience left such a lasting impact is going to carry through for, not just the rest of the season, but that's the standards now that a team have committed to and set that is going to continue for, hopefully seasons on end now, because they've got a reference point for it.
If you're listening to this and watching this, you're kind of wondering why there's these long pauses, but it's I feel like I'm saying this a little bit maybe too often. I don't want it to lose its meaning, but it's that openness with the group. It's that openness with the athletes. It's that openness with people, and they're not going to they're not going to be listening to this. They're not going to hear this, but it's not that those types of people and teams are not out there. They are, but there does, in my experience, there needs to be a real there's quite a number of things that need to be in place to facilitate that. I don't want to go meandering about it, but it's just it really is very special when that does happen, and that's why it's the winning moment this week.